right, welcome to another edition of Reptile Fight Club. It's me, Justin Julander. And with me, as always, Chuck Poland. What is up?
Roll the dice.
Ooh, we've been having a little technical issue here, and Chuck keeps disappearing every couple seconds.
It's not a technical issue. I think I was just messing with my microphone, and it was like causing the ultimate go on the fritz.
Let's hope.
I was phasing in and out of existence, and noises were coming on and going away, and now I hear Ruby squeaking in the background.
Getting ready to hear the words.
Yeah,
PK.
She's like, oh, it's fight time.
It's go time. Time to bark.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a little while since we've recorded.
It has been a while. I don't even feel like I know you anymore. Who are you?
I know, it's been.
You are a man of many books.
Yeah, man. That's holy cow. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll do a little recap of. So, I recently went to Mexico on a little trip.
You boys been to Mexico?
Yeah, I posted a link. I don't know if anybody saw it, but posted a link to some short clips. But there's a YouTube video I need to put up that my buddy filmed. He's got this.
All I saw was a seal and a fat bird.
Oh yeah. Oh, just the pictures, photos. You haven't seen the video yet.
No.
I'm pretty sure I shared it on Facebook, but
I think you did.
It's pretty cool. So he has one of those 3D cameras. So basically, we went down to where was it? Guaymas area down in Mexico. So basically, south of Tucson till you hit the ocean, and beautiful place. Just really nice. Really, I think they thought it was going to be this huge resort town, and so they built it up like it was going to be huge, and then it didn't really deliver. And so it's kind of still got the small town feel, but the ocean's beautiful. The water's nice and clear and very warm. It was 80 degrees, the water temperature down there in October, so not a bad thing. And so mainly the trip was focused around snorkeling and stuff, and so we were in the water quite a bit, did a bunch of day dives, I guess. I don't know if you call them dives when you're snorkeling. Day swims.
Well, you were with divers, right?
Oh, yeah.
There were divers
on the boat trip.
And then you guys were snorkeling, right?
So, the first few days we just kind of hit some of the different sites around town just from the beach and looked at fish, did that kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, you're going to become a fisher.
I dragged my buddy. So I went with my buddy from high school and my daughter Grace, and then we went. I dragged him out at night to go herping. So I brought some little lights and stuff. And we actually stayed at my buddy's house in Phoenix the night before we went down to Mexico, and so we went out herping that night too. But we only found a tarantula and a banded gecko out in the Phoenix area. Where did we just kind of went east of his house, I think. So, over into the foothills of the Superstitions. So we went after dark, so I didn't really get to see where we were herping, but he took us down this cool canyon. So we did this little loop hike thing in the dark, and, found a couple things. Found a little, red spotted toad. It was fun. And then, got a good night's sleep. Drove down there in the morning, like I said, went around snorkeling and stuff. The food was fantastic, really not expensive. It was really nice time for
a lot of
my
seafood?
stomach. Yeah. Seafood. We had fish tacos, of course, and some shrimp tacos. Nice. And then we got some octopus at one restaurant, kind of down, or I guess it was further north above San Carlos where we were staying.
Was it fried or was it served up?
It was grilled octopus, and it was smaller octopus, but just served up, tentacles and suckers and all. So
nice.
Cool. My daughter even tried some.
I was gonna ask. That's what I was just gonna ask, is if Grace was with it.
Yeah, she did all right with it, and she was great. She snorkeled really well, and there was one spot where I thought a wave was going to catch her and kind of smash her into the rock. So I kind of grabbed her and I was trying to push her away from this little area because the water just looked too shallow for her to go over the rock. I thought she was going to get ruined, and there were all these sea urchins and stuff. And so in the process of trying to get her clear of it, I smashed into an urchin, like all these spines in my right knee and in my hand. And I still have a couple like stuck in there. I think they're still welted up and a little strange, but yeah. But I don't even know. She probably would have been just fine. I probably was panicking for no reason. But I kept getting worried. Like I can't lose one of my kids down here. You know, like she gets carried off in the surf or something.
I don't think Heidi would. That
would be a rough deal.
One of your daughters in Mexico.
Yeah. So every time I lost sight of her, and she was pretty brave. Like she just cruised off on her own and stuff. I'm like, "Where's Grace? Where is she?" I'd swim over to her, and she's like, "Dad."
We'd have to change it to Reptile, You're Never Gonna Live This Down Club rather than Love Club.
Yeah. So luckily I brought her home intact and she was just fine. But yeah, she had a good time.
Well done.
So
did her? Oh yeah. Keep going.
The last day we went out to Nolasco Island. And it was like an hour and a half boat ride out there. And, you know, on the way out we were seeing some good birds, a couple flying fish, stuff like that. We didn't see any dolphins. Shane said all the other trips they went on down there, they've seen dolphins. So I felt a little gypped. I'm going to have to go back, I guess. But out at the island, like the water was crystal clear. You could see down, you know, maybe 20, 30 feet. And there was like this rocky bottom. And so out in Nolasco, they have a bunch of sea lions that hang out around that island and, you know, lay up on the rocks and stuff. And so like you mentioned, there was a boat full of people, like 30 or 40 people on the boat. And the three of us were the only snorkelers. And so the scuba divers all hit deeper water and went offshore a bit while we stayed around shore and had the sea lions all to ourselves. So like there were groups of probably 15, 16 sea lions swimming around us. And we went to 3 different spots on the island and, it was really cool.
And they were cool. Like, sea lions can be dickheads sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They didn't bother us at all. I mean, they'd come up to you and maybe like bark underwater and kind of scare you, you know, or open their mouth and kind of like try to scare you.
Give you kind of the ruby treatment, like the sea ruby treatment.
Yeah. At the last dive spot, just before we were coming back, there was one female that just followed us around the whole time. And she'd like swim around and like come right up to us with her mouth open and stuff. And you'd be like, oh crap. And then she'd get close enough. I tried to, like pet her a couple times, but they're just too fast and agile in the water. So, but it was a lot of fun. And it was funny because you would dive down under the water a bit and they would come check you out. But as soon as you kind of came up by the surface, they'd kind of keep their distance. They'd go back away. So I think they felt superior underwater. At the second site, we were hanging out on the boat or kind of by the shore, and there was a couple big males kind of up on the shore, and they kind of keep watch. And if you get too close to things, they clear the area or whatever. They'll let you know. And so I was kind of going up by the rocks, and I was in shallower water, and it spooked a bunch of females and juveniles, and they all start crashing into the water. And then the bull's like, all right, that's enough. He kind of stands up and starts making his way over. I'm like, oh crap. So I'm trying to swim away from the shore. My friends all laughing like, way to go, dude. You really got him riled up now. And he came, barking into the water, and then he swam past me, kind of gave me the side eye, all dirty, look, and just swam kind of by me. And then he got back out and went back to his little spot and resumed sleeping. But yeah. Quite the experience. Like I've never had such an interactive mammal experience as that, like just they're as curious about you as you are of them. And so they're coming up and swimming around you, and you're kind of swimming around them. And it was really cool. And the footage shows, how close they got up. And he has this 3D camera so you can see all the way around you. So, sometimes he'll widen it out so you can see kind of almost behind you and in front of you kind of thing. It was pretty fun. So there's some fun footage. And then the sea lions really like the camera. So they'd come up and like mouth the camera, kind of bite on it a little bit. And he's like, hey, easy there. But yeah, one came up like 4 or 5 times, but yeah. So nice. It was a great trip. And then, when we were getting back on the boat after the first sight, I saw these lizards running around on the island, and, had my zoom camera and zoomed in, and they were the Alaska Island spiny-tailed iguanas. So that was pretty sweet. Nice. Got to see a new species, I guess. And that's the only place where they are, apparently, because it's in their name, I guess. But I
guess, yeah. It would be misleading if they were.
Yeah. Tinosaura noscalensis, I guess, or something like that. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, those I really like the spiny-tailed iguanas. But we didn't get to go up on shore or anything, so I only got a couple kind of long-distance shots with my P1000, so they turned out okay. But yeah, I posted one of those to Instagram and Facebook. So.
Long-distance wanker shot.
Yep, that would have been cool to go chase them a little bit, but yeah. But yeah, there's a bunch of new bird species out there too. But yeah, at nights I'd drag them around looking for herps, and we found we were driving into town and found a Sonoran whip snake. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
All the cool. Whip snakes, that group are just really cool snakes. So it was fun. It was a smaller one, and he was cruising across the road like right in the middle of traffic, and we missed him. And so I'm like, stop the car. So I jump out and run across the street, and he's trying to make it up this cement embankment, and he can't quite get up. He wasn't tall enough, and so I was able to grab him and then
grab him. Okay.
Put him back in the brush. But yeah, he didn't try to bite or anything. He's pretty chill. Just kind of let me take a couple pictures. I tried to take some pictures in the bush, but didn't work out. He was gone pretty quick, and they were like, dude, we're in the road. We got to get out of here. So I went back to the vehicle. But yeah, that was cool to see. They're beautiful snakes. And then we saw a DOR long-nosed snake. So not the best way to see a snake. And then also a couple different toads. We saw a Sonoran or a Colorado river toad and some other, I think it was red spotted toad or something else. But so a little bit of herping in there, a little incidental herping, I guess you'd call it. So and some focused herping, but just not a lot of success. There were quite a few things down there. I was really hoping to see a boa sigma, but didn't get that lucky, I guess. Maybe I didn't know what I was doing, but or they weren't close to the town we were in. But there were INAT records down there. We just missed out. So, all right. Did Ruby settle down?
No. Well, yes, for now. No, she's going. She's still going. Still going. I don't know. I think this is like twilight dog walking hour time here, so everyone's walking their dogs. So everybody who walks by is a peak call.
Yeah. Good times. Good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we came.
Wouldn't be Fight Club without Ruby,
right? We came back to Phoenix, where my buddy lived. Stayed at his house the night. So we got back Sunday and went to, got up in the morning kind of early and went out east towards Bob Ashley's place. And along the way, we went out and looked for hognose snakes. We did find one, but it had recently been hit, and so that was not the way I wanted to find one. I was kind of bummed out. We saw...
And then Dustin had to post the one he found, the rub it in.
Yeah. Dustin found a nice one. It's an Xanthic hognose out there. That's pretty lucky find. I had a friend that found one of those out there before as well. Yeah, John Royland.
Is that is that kind of an... I mean, is that pretty rare, or is that kind of
it's rare.
Like, you know how reds are kind of a color variation in coastals, and it's not uncommon. Mm-hmm. Is that an
no? This is a simple recessive trait that's reasonably uncommon, but that area is known to have them, so people have found them there before. Gotcha. And that's probably where my buddy found one too. But cool looking animal.
For sure.
I hate it when you find them dead, but it's not the best way. So I need to get out and hike or something, or get on some roads that aren't being traveled on or something. But
that's definitely not the way you want to find any type of reptile when you're herping on the road.
Saw a big old beautiful coach whip crossing the road, just bright red, making his way across the road. So that was pretty sweet. We saw a checker garter snake and a patch nose snake. The patch nose had been hit as well.
Nice.
But yeah, some stuff was out and moving, so that was good. We stuck to the pavement because I thought the dirt roads would be too cool for the animals, but Dustin found his on a dirt road, so maybe I should have been on dirt roads checking it out.
What was that episode we did about conventional wisdom and herping?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was my inexperienced conventional wisdom, or limited experience, 2 or 3 trips down there.
Well, and Dustin's out just doing it, so
Yeah. I mean. And so we were herping, and then so the books were supposed to arrive at 2 p.m. at Bob's place, and so I was kind of like, I realized it was like, oh, it's like almost noon, and so we better think about heading down towards Bob's house. I think, or Bob's place. We were about an hour away. So we start making our way out there, and he texts me, the books are here. So I'm like, oh, sweet, let's go. So, picked up the pace a little bit. I'm lucky I didn't get a ticket or something, but so we drove down there. Grace went and checked out the museum while I loaded up books, and
Is that the first time? She's never been there before?
No, yeah, none of my family has. She's the only one that's been there now. So Summer was very jealous that her older sister got to go.
I bet,
she's like,
dude.
you got to take me there, Dad. Grace doesn't even appreciate it like I would. So,
I could totally understand that too.
Yeah, so
that's funny.
I'll need to take Summer down there, and Heidi too. I want to take Heidi down there. I want to go do like a little.
I think they would. I mean, that's a cool. You got to. Bob's place is awesome.
It's pretty fun, and that area down there, it's hard to beat. The fun stuff you can see down there. So we unfortunately we had to just load up the books and head back because it was like a 10-hour drive. And we were at 2, so I think we rolled into St. George where Kate's living down in the southwest corner of Utah. So we kind of went that way because we knew we weren't going to make it home. It was 15 hours from Bob's place to our door if we went the fastest route. So we thought, we'll take a little detour, go over, see Kate, chat with her for a bit. We actually met Dustin. He was on his way back from work as we were passing through Phoenix, Tucson area. So we met him on the side of the highway, or at a gas station on an exit kind of out between, or just north of Tucson. So he picked up a book. So he got the first copy of the ones I picked up.
Nice.
Other than Eric's, And then so he got a book there, and then drove to St. George, and fortunately had a very easy drive. It was just long. We're like, man, when are we going to be past Phoenix? Hit a little bit of traffic, but nothing too bad. And then rolled into St. George about 12:45 or something, and then got a bit of a night's sleep and got up. And Kate had gotten a flat tire the night before, and so she has the Prius down there because she blew up her car trying to get down to St. George after a little family reunion we had. And then she borrowed one of our cars, and then she couldn't get the tire off, and so she called AAA, I think, and they came, and they couldn't get the tire off, so it took them quite a while to figure out how to get that tire off, and then, I don't know, it was a whole ordeal. So luckily we were there in the morning. We could help her go over to get a new tire, show her how to do that, and help her adult a little bit, and then
nice.
She had to go to work, so we just cruised home and got home.
Sounds like AAA had a hard time adulting there.
We got home at just before Eric. We started.
I was just going to say just before.
Yeah, I basically
just before MPR.
Yeah, well, I stopped off.
You were still panting a little. Yeah, you were still panting a little.
I stopped off at the university and got rid of the majority of the cases of books. I picked up 33, and I brought 8 home. So the rest are up at the university, and I think I'm down to like 6 or 7 at the university and 8 at home. So I shipped out a lot of books this week, and so now I'm in a good place, except I'm leaving on vacation. But if anybody wants a book in the next couple of days, hit me up. Well, you're not going to hear this until Friday until we're leaving.
Exactly.
But it's nice to have those out, and I've still got a couple orders that are pending and should take up quite a few more books.
Once you sell the rest of these books, are you going to place another order with Bob? Or
eventually, yeah. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they went pretty quick, and I had quite a few pre-orders, which was nice, and sent a bunch of books overseas and, within the U.S. And since I picked them up,
hold on. Freaking hostile canine.
Since I picked them up, I was able to save on the shipping. I think Nick got like one case more than I did, and it was like $700 or something. So crazy, yeah. So I guess I saved a little bit, and it was just good timing that I was down there in the area when the books arrived. So it allowed me to save that shipping. So that was nice. Yeah. And then I had them earlier, because Nick still had to wait for his to ship out. So I pretty much had all mine shipped by the time Nick got his. And then now he's in that same stage I was last week, trying to get things packaged up and all that kind of stuff and to the post office. I mean, I was like, and I have a post office on campus, so I can just box them up in my office. So I would go in early, like a couple hours early to work, box up books, and then, run them over once the post office opened, just kind of walk them over. I'm carrying like 12 books, and I'm like, huffing and puffing. People are offering to help me, like, you need help? I'm like, do I look that weak? I don't know, but, it's a heavy book. So
you're not a young man anymore, Dr. Julander.
I'm carrying 50 pounds of books across campus, like.
It's all fun and games until you throw your back out.
Yeah, my back was a little off this week for sure. So
I'm telling you,
I'm not a young man anymore. But
we are not spring chickens.
Yeah, one of my lab techs was walking out at the same time. He's like, "Can I help you with those?" I'm like, "Yes, please." But yeah, it's good to have that kind of behind me now a little bit, and I'm still getting the orders, and I think after we did NPR. I got a lot more orders in, and, people are like, "Are you got any more copies left?" So I still do have, a few copies. And so if you want to purchase one, you're welcome to. Just check out my website, australianaddiction.com. The details there. I also put a link up for the posters. So if anybody's interested in a poster, they find the link there, see a picture of it, purchase it if you'd like. I've got a few posters left on hand and some shipping tubes, so I can ship you some. But yeah, so that's kind of been my what's going on with me. How about you?
That's busy.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Busy. I don't know. And then now we're leaving again, so I gotta gear up for the next trip. So
yeah, I don't have my life is not as I've got so my air conditioning unit, they finally came today, and I'm finally getting that installed, so that'll be great.
Now that it's cooling
I'll have
down,
air conditioning just in time for winter. Yeah, that's awesome. So it was good for the guys who had to get up into my attic space. It's not 1,000 degrees up there while they're putting in the air handler, but kind of nice to close that loop a little bit. And then I talked to Tony Doyer. So I ended up, remember I was trying to get cages for all the Traciae that I'm growing up. And Tony messaged me and it's like, "Hey dude, I don't know if you want to, if you're interested or not. But I have an order in with AP if you want to jump in on it." And so he totally clutch. And
that's cool.
So those he just messaged me today that those are shipping. So nice. I had to drive up probably, I don't know, next week or sometime and pick those up. Mm-hmm. So 8 new AP cages coming. So that's cool.
What size did you get?
Have that. I did 4. I think I did 4 by 24 by 18 talls. I think it was a space thing. It was. I would have liked to have gone a little taller, but it's just what would fit in the area that I had. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit. A little bit limited.
Are you going to do like roof hides or things like that?
Yeah, I'll probably put some in. I kind of. I'll probably do some, probably just like buy the plastics from San Diego Plastics and build them myself, and then something that can just modularly go in there. But yeah, so just wanted to get the cages. I'm right at the point now where, all the 2019 animals are really ready for new enclosures, and all the 2020 animals are ready for
their old enclosures.
The 2019 enclosures. So everybody's ready to jump. So it was like super clutch that Tony's like, the timing was pretty perfect. Like it allowed me to feed up those older animals, and they're about sized to switch cages now. So it couldn't have worked out better. So I'm excited about that, and just starting to really throw food at the Tracy again for this season. And let's see what else has been going on.
Tony's a cool guy. That's nice.
Yeah, he is, man. He totally, like, I mean, everybody honestly, like when I had asked about cages, everybody kind of came out of the woodwork and offered. So I really am appreciative of everybody who reached out.
Yeah.
But it just happened to work out that I hate the weight, but I really do like AP cages, man. They do a good job with those cages, and it's kind of what I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So, I'm an old man. I stick to what I know. So.
Man, having that San Diego Plastics or whatever down there, I bet I order from, what is it, California Plastics?
Yeah, there's a San Diego Plastics, and I think there's I don't want to say it's like a U.S. Plastics, or there's another plastics company right down here. But San Diego Plastics is like, it's right on the border of National City and Chula Vista, right by the 5. So it's like,
can you pick stuff up there?
It's not
then?
far at all.
You just go,
nice. Yeah. You can go. I mean, they've got like, any kind of plastic you want, like, so it's not the cheapest. Like, obviously, like all these plastics cage manufacturers are getting good deal on their foamed PVC by buying in such big bulk. But I mean, if it's kind of, if you didn't want to have to do it in plywood, which is probably just about as expensive,
if not more expensive, depending on what you're getting. So,
so it's been, kind of excited about that. Just, I don't know, some crazy doctor sent me a couple of books, and I got an awesome T-shirt. Looks like you need to do some more T-shirts, man.
I know. Give me a minute before.
I know. I'm
move
sorry.
on.
I'm sorry.
No, I it's funny because I've had them for a long time, and I still have quite a few of them. So it's like they're not flying off the at the shows or whatever.
Well, you're not a man of marketing.
I'm not a marketing man. I thought they're such. I thought they were so cool. They just sell themselves, kind of thing.
They are cool.
I really
they're
like
super
them.
Cool.
Anyway, they're fun.
Well, everybody else likes them too.
Yeah, I guess it's just like one of those things. I mean, there's reptile people like to spend their money on reptiles, as evidenced by keeping in, less than ideal caging.
But you know what, man?
They do like T-shirts usually. I need to just give them to people who buy stuff from me. That's what I need to do. I just forget, like, that's kind of what it was meant as, is like a bonus for somebody who bought stuff. And I've given a few away to people who buy stuff.
What day is a good day to ship, and what's your shirt size?
But sometimes it's hard. Like, I got to ship them separately or something, So I bought a bunch of Mylar or not Mylar, but like just plastic shippers, that I could just throw a T-shirt in and slap a label on it and go. But I just need to remember to do it. If you buy something from me, remind me you want a shirt and tell me what size you wear, and I'll send you something along with your animal. Well, we probably should.
Could you be twisted? Could I twist your arm into coming out to Pomona in January? Is that possible?
I think that,
are you?
Yeah.
I'm doing this very publicly. So that I can get this on. Good. I want it on record. I
would like to do that. Let's look into it, see like exactly when, and see what's going on with work and stuff.
I think it's the 7th,
really
and 8th.
So that could be a treacherous drive for me through Utah, but it should work out. I wouldn't mind getting somewhere a little warmer. But,
So, I mean, I'd split the cost with you, so, it wouldn't be like you'd be eating eating a whole table.
And I haven't done a California show in a while, so that'd be good too.
I haven't been to Pomona in a couple years. I think the last time I went to Pomona, was I with you?
Probably. Yeah, that's the last time I did it. I think we vended together. Or maybe it was San Diego. Or no, it was Pomona.
Well,
no,
San
it was
Diego
Pomona.
I
don't think I've ever vended San Diego.
Yeah, I don't.
It was Pomona. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was a good show. Yeah, that was fun. We need to make that happen. Yeah, if you want to set it up, I'll drive down and vend with you. That sounds really nice.
Okay. All right, guys, you heard it.
Yep.
Holding him to it.
More than it is.
Holding him to it. This is what I got to do. I invite myself on herp trips on this. This is my forum for participation.
I appreciate it.
I rope you into things, and I invite myself on things.
Yeah.
Like this is my.
It's kind of what I do too. Like I've always done that too.
Hey.
Yeah. I wanna, yeah. Well, you think it's time to fight?
We can do that.
Okay. Well,
dispense with the pleasantries.
Yeah, today we had a lot to catch up on, I suppose.
I feel like that's
talking
true.
about publications. So Chuck and I were just having a conversation and talking about different papers that came out and stuff, and we're thinking, sometimes papers can be very valuable for learning things, and other times they can maybe even be a misleading thing where people take too much from them and hold them in too high regard or take them too seriously. I don't know, how do you want to say that? But so we're going to fight about that today. So we'll, I guess, weigh the pros and cons of using data from reptile publications. Does that sound like a reasonable way to state it?
Sure.
All right. Well, let's toss the old coin, see what side we get. Go ahead and call it.
Tails.
It's heads. Oh, man.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the pro that it's, that herpetological publications have good material that can move us forward in our keeping and understanding of these things.
Okay.
So, of course, with any topic, there's lots of, pros and cons or things to consider.
Hills and valleys.
Hills and valleys. So we'll go over those today. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a Chuck and let you go first. So.
All right.
Go ahead and lead out.
Okay, hold on. So my whole thing is that they can be...
The limitations are, Yeah.
So, I think... obviously, in any publication, it's only as good as the science that's put into it. And sometimes, depending upon, any type of data you have or you create or you gather, it's all how you process that data and how you kind of look at it and interpret it and how you put it out, because any data can be misinterpreted and put out incorrectly and lead somebody down the path of perhaps the wrong conclusions, or even having biases in your interpretation of data can sometimes be a pitfall. So it's a huge thing for researchers and people who publish data and papers to really be careful that they're not subject to biases in their data. That's exactly why they have peer reviews and why you have, third-party experts or third-party, reviewers look at this stuff so that you're, not publishing something that potentially could, mislead your reader and make you look like an ass to the your fellow researchers or whatever. So, I think that's probably where I would lead out as like kind of the big overarching statement of why you have to be really careful when it comes to publications of any kind. And I think, and even in non-scientific type publications, you have to be a critical reader. You have to, gather data from multiple sources and be a critical thinker and kind of understand kind of what you're and some of that's a process, and some of that is, you can be, it's an evolution. You can be led to the wrong path to figure out, wait, that's not right. And to later, kind of understand when you kind of gather data from multiple or better sources, so, it's definitely it's not an easy thing, but I do think that well gathered scientific research is probably one of our best points of I clearly think that the scientific method and the reproduction of science in under the scientific method is probably our strongest form of gathering real data and real information that is helpful. But
that's strong. And I'm thinking, man, I should have taken the con, because there's a lot of good insights maybe from being in the in academia and publishing quite a bit. But so I would agree that peer review is one of the best things that we have going for us as far as scientific literature. At least it has to go through the hands of 2 or 3 or 4, people that critically review it, looking for things that could be off or that could raise alarms, looking for plagiarism, looking for all those kind of things, looking to see that their statistical analyses are reasonable for what they're doing, and that they're not over-interpreting things. And so I've reviewed many papers and articles in my field, and so but sometimes it's like another thing to your list, and you just try to get through it quick, and but and also some reviewers can be too critical and just like hammer a paper, even though it's a good paper and has important data. So I try to facilitate, to make sure that I raise concerns about things that might be misinterpreted or overinterpreted or overstated. Look for other issues like that. But that's kind of the gatekeeper to having good data published. You also, many people may not know that there's like a tiered system. You have different levels of journals that you can shoot for. You have some like, low-level journal that does not have much of an impact factor. So impact factor is a rating system that they use to kind of demonstrate, the quality of the journal, the impact of the articles that are published in that journal, how many people that read them, and how impactful they are in the scientific literature. And so if you'll have some journals that have a 20, or a 30 impact, a very high impact factor, 25 or 24, I think are kind of the highest level, or I don't know what it goes to, but it's up in the 20s, maybe 30 or something is the highest. And then you have some that have like 0.5. So, you have a big difference. Now, a lot of the journals I publish in are maybe between 5 and 10. They're usually around 5. If I have a really good paper, I'll try to submit it to one that has a little bit higher. And I've gotten a couple co-authored papers into the 20 level journals, some of the really good journals. So like Cell or Science or things like that. Those are kind of the upper division journals. So if you read an article on that, that it's gone through the ringer, and that they just don't let anything through, So, there's differences in quality of journals and the, how stringent they are in their reviews and how hard they hit, when they're doing their reviews. So, I review for journals that are in the 5 and 6 range, so they're kind of good journals, but not, the pinnacle journals, I guess. And it depends on the area you're in. I don't know, like for some of the herpetological publications, but anyway, I mean, you kind of brought this up, so I'm just fleshing that out a little bit, but peer review really helps to improve the quality. And you don't have that with like Care Sheets Online or Reptiles Magazine articles. I mean, I'll read some of these Reptiles Magazine articles and they're just complete trash. And others, are pretty good and they're not bad, but some are just garbage. You're reading them going, do these people even know what they're doing with these things? It's crazy.
Some articles that get posted are not, I would not consider them scientific research.
No.
They're more of like, they're more of a professional care sheet, more of a, or a care sheet that's been done under more zoological type conditions or something like that, where they're almost giving like a more of a species plan to, or what do they call the husbandry?
Herpetoculture.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Well, and there's a section in the journal, Herpetological Review, that is for herpetoculture. They have a section on that. And that's another maybe point I can make really quickly, is that you have different kinds of articles too. There's some like that are review articles that just basically sum up the known literature and kind of put it together, covering one aspect of an area of science. Like they could cover skinks that practice grouping, that live in family groups or something. I've seen that article, and it's a really cool article. It just talks about all the published information regarding that subject. And so those review articles are actually very handy because it gives you a lot of information in kind of a small amount of pages. So, and I mean, some of them are pretty long, but so review articles just summarize the published data. You can have a full research article where they've controlled their studies and balanced them out. You can have like an ecological study where they're just observing what's in the environment and what animals are present and what they're doing in their environment or what their gut contents are and things like that. So those can be helpful to get a glimpse into what's going on with the animals, but there's no like not really any kind of statistical analysis needed. It's not like they're trying to discover something new other than like what an animal's eating or what it's doing in the wild. Then you have things that might be like case reports where, like maybe you're talking about, where you get a talk about what you did, what species you bred in a zoo and what you did to get that result. And that may not be the best way or the worst way, or, that's just kind of the way they did it.
It's just an account. Yeah. It's kind of more of an account of something rather than,
And I would say those are like good jumping off points for, if you're looking into that species. That's a really good place to start. But don't take it as like, this is the only way to do it. This is the, that kind of thing. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to.
Well, and I think that's a tough part too, because especially if a zoo publishes something because they did something that's like, hasn't been done or is difficult to do or whatever, hey, if not a lot of people have done it, and you're the only person who's published on it, where does everybody go, to figure something out? If it's poorly accounted and your publication is the only one that really talks about it, then I don't know. I kind of feel like you're like the source, whether it's like, a scientific publication or, a high-end journal or a low-end, like you're the only, you're it, you know what I mean? So in that sense, it's kind of like, man, how do you think about that? Is there definitely pitfalls from that or benefits from that? And I mean, it can kind of, I agree with you. I think there's, I think a lot of times people read something that hasn't been done and they think that's the way you do it. And I think the reality of stuff is like, that's how they did it. I think the phrase "more than one way to skin the cat" comes to mind when I think about that kind of stuff. And
well, that's kind of relevant to maybe to right now, where we just had an article. They had an article published in Herpetological Review by, was it Blake Bauer, that was
Oh, the
Tracy A paper. Yeah. What'd you think of that? Like, did you read it?
I
did it
did
match
read it.
your kind of methods, or what do you think?
Well, so I mean, I don't think that they were doing anything really, extreme from keeping other Somalia or other like type pythons. But like the enclosures that they kept the animals in were much bigger than the enclosures I had. They
they're
fed
a zoo,
a
so
little,
that makes, understandable.
Yep. So, and then some of like their methodology changed to where how they treated. I think they had some issues around. They did maternal incubation and then had a failure with artificial incubation, and so obviously like they had changed some things. And I mean, I guess reading it, nothing in there. I guess. I don't know. I don't know
but
how
they
to
have
say
the
it. Like, but it's
two
like,
males.
I'm not
like kind of like you were doing it. But then they pulled one of the males, and then they were.
But
doing
they weren't.
intermittent.
But they weren't leaving their males in there. They had done some.
Well, it looks like they pulled one and then put it back, and then there was some lacerations on the animal or something.
Yeah, I kind of didn't understand that because they had never witnessed any male combat, and how one of those animals got cut up was not like I didn't really. I mean, was that what it was from?
Yeah.
Was from
they made the point to say that they
had
had seen them bite each other in feeding responses, so it could have just been a misguided feeding response too.
Yeah, and if you're feeding, scrub pythons together, like totally, that'll happen. Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I think I guess my thing is scrub pythons don't combat each other, and that was kind of stated but not explicitly stated in they had said they just didn't witness it, but then kind of made it sound like maybe they had some aggression to each other or whatever. But and some of their observations around how the males interacted with the females and other males pre and post ovulation were pretty dead on to what I've seen. I think that was really very very much you knew the female was gravid because she'd get really really dark and she'd swell and she looked gravid. And I think there was some stuff in there that was great, but there was other things that like they did husbandry wise that I just it was a little different than when I did, and they had success, I had success. So like there's part of it there where I felt like some of this is like I know exactly I got that, oh that nope not that, oh no not that. So there's part of me that's like I see the way it can be helpful, but at the same time, like if somebody was reading that and being like, oh, their enclosure dimensions were this, and this, and think this is the way you have to do it. Well, I did it in much, much smaller enclosures. So it's like, I think it's great. I'm glad Blake got that published, and they absolutely should publish that as the first. And I just don't feel comfortable publishing my stuff yet. I kind of wanted to have a third success, and I haven't had a third success. And but again, like, here's a zoo and Blake having success their way. Here's me having success my way. I guarantee you that Shane is doing it a little bit different. And the guy over in Europe, who bred the same year I did, was probably doing it a little bit different as well. I mean, I think like, it takes me all back to, is python reproductive husbandry all that much different? Well, in some very minor ways, yes, but every single one of us is in different parts of the country, and we all had success. And we don't all have the same conditions. Our rooms are not the same conditions. Our enclosures are not the same. I guarantee the way we feed is not always the same. And it didn't even sound like the way they managed those animals year to year was exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So like, I think it goes to your point of like plasticity and reproduction. And so to me, it's like less about like the formula. You got to have the formula. This is the 1, 2, 3, check these boxes way to do it. And more a way of like, hey, student of the serpent, consistency, and then trying to be reproducible in that. You know what I mean? And I think when I changed enclosures, either those animals went 2 years in a row and said, we need a break, or, changing something made a difference, or both. Yeah. Not going to really know. I mean, we'll see, but, I don't know. I feel like I'm bumbling on now, but yeah, I mean, some of that was super on point and super like, yep. But I feel like some of that also keeps with other scrub pythons that I've kept. They get, you can watch males as they cycle through their reproductive cycle get very, very dark in their dorsal, and then they lighten back up a little bit, but never seem to lighten up quite as much as they do after their first after the first sexually active cycle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like, there's certain commonalities I think that are there, and I think you can draw good insights from it. But I think my thing would be that there's definitely, like, if you were to take something somebody wrote other than just their account, you definitely might set yourself up for chasing your tail a little bit if you're trying to reproduce something somebody did under completely different environmental, conditions than you have. Now you're trying to do something that's very, unnatural. Whereas I think, I kept steady climates, and my animals really, from year to year, from season to season, they were like, yep, I know what's happening here. I got this. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? To me, that's more important than to be checking the boxes.
Yeah. And, like you said, there's a lot of ways it can be done, but, and so I guess that's the point of this discussion, is that it's, you've got to take these kind of things with a grain of salt and know that, there's other ways to potentially do this. And so you can't just say, oh, this is the way we breed Tracy. We got to follow this publication exactly, how they did it and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a trick, I guess. But so yeah, so some more pros, I think, is that, academics are funded usually to run the studies, and so they have those the means to run a well-controlled study. They can, house things ethically, I guess, although, that may not be completely the case all the times. Our herpetology group was keeping a carpet python. I looked in, and they had it in a glass aquarium with a screen top and a light on top, and it was having shedding issues. I'm like, come on, guys, the complete carpet python's over in the library. You can check it out and read up on these things. So sometimes you wonder, and I mean,
does that give you a level of satisfaction?
I don't know, because Rick Shine,
it's in the library. What are you doing?
Rick Shine did say that he could study reptiles all the time, but he didn't really do the best job at keeping them in boxes, and so there's different, and I think a lot of academics kind of look down on herpers because they're like, they're just keeping snakes in boxes and making morphs and things like that. So I think that's when we generalize. We don't do very well, I think, with generalizations. But so yeah, I'm probably being too critical. I'm sure they do a great job at keeping their study species happy and healthy, but. it's hard to study a dead reptile. So hopefully they keep them to the highest standards possible.
Well, and I mean, not every reptile is easy to keep in captivity. Some just don't do very well. So you can be a very talented keeper and still have a hard time just because it's not an easy species to keep. So,
sure.
I mean, you're a lot of times fighting, things that maybe aren't always in your control as much as you'd like to think they are.
I think, so with those means, they can set them up the way they need to be set up. They can test different experimental, conditions in the lab or in the field. They have different instrumentation to measure things that, the average herper wouldn't have access to. And so they can, generate data or gather data, that a typical herper would have a hard time gathering. So a lot of, I really liked a lot of the studies that came out of Dale DiNardo's lab, and maybe sometime we ought to get him on here if he'll come on and chat with us.
That'd be cool.
But he did a lot of great studies with children's pythons as a model species because, they could, looking at maternal care and things of reptiles and stuff.
Bulletproof.
Yeah, he did really well with them. He produced a lot of children's pythons. I actually met a PhD student that's up at, or maybe she's a postdoc, but she's up at the university, up at Utah State University. And I was vending a show down in Salt Lake, and she came by the table and she's like, "Yeah, I'm doing research." And I'm like, "Oh, what lab are you in?" She's like, "Oh, up at Utah State." I'm like, "Oh, cool. I'm in the building next to you." I'm like, I need to come over and check out things over there. She's like, "Yeah, anytime." So I need to hit her up and go tour the lab or something, see what's going on, what kind of research they're doing. But I've had some ins there in the past, but I just haven't made it over there too often or visited with them much. So I need to see if I can make some inroads.
You need to go rub elbows, Justin. You know what I'm saying? Go hobnob with the herp people.
And there's been some really good studies that have been done up at Utah State, mainly with like tetrodotoxin and the newts, and kind of the way that the Thamnophis, the garter snakes, could feed on toxic newts and not die. So there's like this arms race and a little. They identified the channel or the what was it, like an ion channel or something that allowed them to detoxify, I guess, once they ate their toxic meal or something. I can't remember all the details, but there's lots of papers published by Brody and his lab, Dr. Brody. So good stuff. But so, having the funds to run well controlled and studies that could use lots of different technology can be a good thing and can generate a lot of useful information.
What about like the pressure to publish? You feel like that could be a detractor? I kind of feel like, if you as a researcher or somebody who, is I mean, a lot of your credibility comes from, in some fields you have to publish to be credible, right?
Yeah, it's part of the job.
If you're not publishing work, if you're not publishing work, then who are you? I've never heard of you, blah, blah, blah. And you hear so much about, publications that later come back to be, hey, this was not on board, or, the
high enough impact.
Come to find out the data was maybe not a complete data set. I think I remember. Was it Johnson? It was one of the SARS-2 COVID vaccines. They got some criticism because they wanted to limit the size of their data set because it made their effectiveness look better. And so, like, obviously in a situation where you can make more money if there's a profit model to it, but I think I'm speaking more towards, like, just the pressure to publish, to be relevant, and,
the statement,
the issues that
the statement "publish or perish" is a real thing in academia. If you and that goes hand in hand with obtaining grants, and so a lot of times you have to chase funding, and kind of go research topics that are interesting to the funding agencies, not necessarily to yourself. And so a lot of times they'll use model organisms, kind of like we were saying with the children's pythons and things, but they could use those to show maternal care in an ectotherm kind of thing. So they're applying it maybe more broadly than so. You're limited, and a lot of times it's very hard to get funding, to obtain any funding. And so, that's another challenge. And a lot of people, I know of people who've been at really great institutions, but they didn't get enough funding or didn't publish enough, and so they had to go find another job. They didn't make tenure. And so, kind of the same thing as the journals is also you have higher tier, institutions like Harvard or, the Ivy League schools, that kind of thing. Not necessarily that better research comes from those places, but they have a very high standard for their researchers. And if they're not obtaining funding and they're not publishing enough, then usually they don't last very long there. So,
but those high standards are they equate to pressure.
Oh yeah, right? I mean, tremendous pressure.
You as a researcher have a huge amount of pressure on you to publish or perish, as you said. So I think my concern would be some of the, and I guess maybe the pressure to perform is something that's maybe good in small doses for everybody, but you could easily see how somebody might misconstrue data or misconstrue something because they're trying to get data to say something that they want to help prove a point, or and I'm not even talking about a researcher doing that maliciously. I'm just saying that your unconscious biases will lead you to a path, especially if there's multiple ways you can look at the data. And you brought up the children's python paper, and another thing that comes to my mind is you'd send that to me, and I was like looking at it.
The reclassification or lumping everything under children eye except for spotted, all the Stimsons.
And, so, I can read abstracts no problem, and I was very clear about that when I started like getting into a lot of how they're interpreting their DNA stuff, and like that's when I was kind of like, okay, I don't see, like, there's nothing in there. And part of it is probably because I just spent, a good 15, 20 minutes looking at it. And I was kind of reading and looking at the graphs and kind of like, okay. Well, you know what? Maybe they're right because I don't know how to read that stuff. And maybe they're wrong because I don't know how to read that stuff. Right. Yep. So I think, when a layperson reads something scientific and a researcher says this is the way it is because that's what the data says, and you don't know how to read the data well enough to be like, I agree with this part, but not that part, but I see this, but I don't see that. When you can't see that, then what are you left doing? You're saying, well, I guess the data looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what, I'll believe most people do. And I think you're right. That can definitely be a con if they're, trying to name a new species. And so they're going to really work that data to show that, there is a new species or something. And they want to do something controversial. So they'll, show that there isn't, that all these are lumped into one, or I don't know. I don't know what their motivations were, or if they had any ulterior motives. And we can assign all that kind of stuff all we want, but I guess it comes down to the species model that they use and their interpretation of data and their interpretation of what a species is. And so, their conclusions led to that organization. At an abstract level, they were very willing to draw lines in certain places, but in other places where maybe there's some questionable lines, they were like, nope, no line to be drawn here. This is all children's. Yeah, but you see different structure within there. So, and I guess I've never understood like this. There was a knobtail paper that was just published, and they named a new species. They split asper into two species. Now I can't think of the name. It's like, oh man, megalodon. What is it? Dang it! Oh well. Anyway, it'll come to me. But we
that'll be my closing. But, you'll just blurt it out at the closing.
They did some nice research, and they showed there's biogeographical barriers. They showed there's genetic differences. They showed there's phenotypic differences. And so, I think they made a good argument to show that there is a separate or distinct species there. They had some data that would maybe suggest there's even more, splits that could be made within Nephurus. And so, they didn't go that far. So I guess to me that kind of suggests, okay, we're doing the work. We're doing our due diligence, Or I didn't get that sense when I'm reading that Antaresia paper. I got the sense that, they had a very limited sampling, but of the spotted pythons, but that was enough to say, yeah, these are distinct species. So I don't know. It was a little tough to take. And maybe it's just because I didn't really, agree with their conclusions. So it's kind of makes that difficult, but I don't know. What do you do?
But a lot of your issues with those conclusions are based on phenotypical differences that you see. And I mean,
and
so
it's not a professional
view.
I'm not a taxonomist. So obviously they know better than I do in that regard. But
again, I mean, that paper didn't address scale counts and phenotypical differences.
They integrated that into their analysis somehow, I believe.
Okay, I didn't.
Yeah. It was a little embedded, I think, in there. But, obviously it'd be nice to get the authors on here and kind of discuss these questions or, concerns that we have about this whole thing. And, and are they just gene jockeys? Have they ever seen them in the wild? Have they seen them, in life, or gone out and caught them or something? The name of the Nephurus,
it's driving me crazy.
Gosh. I love that kind of thing. It's kind of a weird name, but
it's reverting back to its Pleistocene taxonomy.
Exactly.
That was for Nick Munn.
He likes that Pleistocene era, doesn't he?
Oh, that's his favorite. That's his favorite time.
Yeah.
He's always talking about back in the Pleistocene.
Aromanga. The Aromanga. Yeah, the Aromanga spiny knobtail gecko. So I think that's the
Amii
Aromanga basin knobtail gecko. That's what they're calling it. So that's the common name. So it's Nephurus aromanga. Anyway, sorry. I had to look it up. I couldn't remember it. Aromanga. I'm going to have to repeat that
so they split it into a whole other
yeah, so there was this big black soil plain in between the east and the west populations of asper, and there was kind of a gap in the distribution. The ones to the west look a little more reddish colored. They have, the ones in the east have variable patterning, but they usually don't show that kind of reddish look to them. And so they almost look like a cross between an asper and an amia, the centralian versus the coastal spiny knobtail. So these, I think it's been known for a while to herpers that there's a difference and that you find these larger, redder spiny knobtails, inland. And so it wasn't a big surprise to some of the Australian guys that know their knobtails. I'm trying to think if we included this in the book. I think we talked about maybe mostly about the Cape York specimens, the banded, knobtails that look. But there's some banded knobtails kind of from south of the. But there was some data that showed that there could be other splits, and that's what I was talking about. So there is some distinction of the stuff way up the Cape as well as at the bottom of the Cape compared to the stuff that's further south. So, it's a big range, and there's gaps, and so things have time to kind of be in isolation and speciate. And then all of this is...
God, it almost sounds like the east coast of carpet pythons.
Pretty much, it's similar lines can be drawn. I guess maybe the black soil plains, I don't know if they would stop a carpet, but I imagine they probably would. They'd be a little harder for a carpet to navigate across that, so you might have a similar break or something, and that probably separates the coastals or the Cheney from the whatever the desert inlands are, the super inlands, the gammons and flinders
super
range animals that
super inlands.
So I don't know. Cool stuff.
God, that's going to be the next morph. You're going to see gammons. They're going to be like, no, those are super inlands. That's a super form of Metcalfi.
Let's not go there. I don't want to see that. But anyway,
you started. Just remember, you said it. You started the whole thing.
I do think. I think this paper, and it's by it's called Pliopleistocene vicariance across arid Australia in the spiny knobtail geckos, Nephrurus asper group, with the description of a new species from Western Queensland, and this is by Oliver Donnellan and Gunn. So that was just published, just barely, but you can access the whole article online, so it's kind of cool. But I think it was a well done paper, and I think this is a great example of the way taxonomy is done these days. You find genetic, morphological, and distribution differences. If biogeographical barriers involved, all the better, and that's kind of what we did. We did do a little genetic work in the carpet book with Dr. Warren Booth. So, we tried to show those differences in genotype as well as phenotype and distribution. So, I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see what people think after they have a time to read the book and look at our reasoning and see if they agree with what we said. And that's the beauty of science too, is you don't necessarily have to agree with what comes out, but I guess it's kind of a little bit on you to prove that wrong or show it's different.
Absolutely.
So, and that becomes the trick is, where I'm not a taxonomist, I can't really say, oh, the children's Python paper or, the taxonomy paper was bad. And so, because,
I don't think in that children's Python paper, you're arguing with the genetic, findings there. I think you're just
the
arguing with how their taxonomic model for arriving at that is strictly genomic. If that's the case, then is it reasonable to say that we need to have a completely redo taxonomy at a genomic level so everything is on the same page, but stuff that was originally
taxonomically designated.
Thank you, Jesus. I couldn't even say it. It was originally more done phenotypically and scale counts and things like that. And now, you're looking at genes and so it's like, I don't know.
It's interesting too, because, you think that, the genetics would be the end all be all, but I don't think it's that magic bullet that because initially everybody was just sequencing things and trying to show, oh, it's different because of the genetics. But and it depends on which region you look in or how thorough you are or how thoroughly you look at the
well, not all animals are under the same speciation pressures, right? So animals that, do not sit under heavy speciation pressures, their genes are not clocking at the same rate as something that's got a lot of pressure on it. So, you might see heavy genetic difference between one population or another, but it has to be contextualized deeper than just this difference from this. Why? Mm-hmm. Why? That's my thing. Is like, why? Yeah. What are the other speciation pressures are happening there? Because it's not just nobody. nature and the environment is not, it's a sliding scale all over the place for different reasons. And I guess that's what my issue is like when you just look at a genetic level, you're taking one piece of a bigger puzzle and trying to make inferences around something when really looking at more of the puzzle will help you get an idea of what the puzzle is.
And that's why I think they've kind of the trend is moving away from looking at just the genetics to also looking at where they occur, what they're doing, what they look like, any kind of differences in morphology. And, this paper includes, different measurements of like head size or arm length and things like that. So it takes in these things into account and really makes it a very detailed and, helpful analysis. So it's not just genetics, it's all these other things coming into play. And so, if you don't have the funding or the instrumentation to run genetics, you can say, I don't like this paper, but it's really hard to, show or publish something yourself without, teaming up with a lab that has the same capabilities that original group did. So I don't know.
And exactly. And if you have a lab that has genetic capabilities, you're more likely to use, what I mean? Like again, it kind of goes to some of those biases I was talking about in the beginning. And you can see examples of them just based on what type of a researcher you might be, what your background might be, where you're, how you.
I will say you do have to have some kind. I mean, your bias, your initial bias is your hypothesis, right? You can say this is how I think it's happening. But you have to be open to the fact that it may not be that way. And you have to be open to data that contradicts your hypothesis. And so, obviously there are instances where that doesn't happen and the people ignore the data and go with their, what they want it to be and manipulate the data or try to fit it to match what they think. And that's when you get into scientific misconduct and people can have their credentials stripped and they can, be fired from their jobs. And so I think it's a rare thing. Does it happen? Yeah. But is it common? Probably not too common,
But but to go back to the children's Python paper, right? Like, I don't think any of those researchers were, committing acts of known biases or I don't think there was anything wrong with what they're doing. I just think they looked at it from, one lens. And I think there was some other stuff like the phenotypical differences, the scale count differences, other differences that they just kind of like,
well, that's why taxonomy is bunk, it's just so hard because they're making up what they want it to be, almost like, there's such a loose structure and such an ill-defined thing that you can pretty much say whatever you want as long as you have some data.
And I guess my point around that was, if your background is in genetics and that is how, as a researcher, you're approaching maybe a taxonomic reclassification is with a background in genetics, then that's what you're going to focus on. But if you're a herpetologist, who is doing something around taxonomy, maybe you're looking at it from a different perspective, right? So that's what I mean, like the biases of your background and how you approach it. And yes, they brought other factors in, but did they weigh those other factors as heavy as they did the genomic research that they did, right?
Yeah, that's the trick, I guess. And I believe, so...
and I'm not saying anybody's wrong here. I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Like, when you there's all kinds of potential biases that, and I don't mean it as, like, malicious biases. No. They're just, like, things that, like... based on how you go at something, right? Like maybe you miss something or whatever.
Yeah, and the authors, the gene jockey is the same guy on the Antaresia paper as on the Nephurus paper. So you got Steve Dinellen that's doing, the work for both papers. And so, and
undoubtedly his genetic work is solid,
I'm sure it
right?
is.
Like,
Yeah, it's just how you interpret that,
right?
and
Like,
your limits or whatever you set, so
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not the genomic work that's the issue. It's how all that data is compiled and the conclusions that are made from it that maybe, did you include other forms? Did you, whatever.
Yeah.
We've killed it.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, just, I guess when you're reading things, just read with a grain of salt and kind of, and we should use our own critical thinking skills to say, does this jive with what I have seen or with the data that I've collected? And we have to be able to tell ourselves, like, no, they're probably right, or I don't know. I think I differ with them in this regard, So we have to be able to kind of make those conclusions for ourselves sometimes. So, I mean, we do our best with what we have, and that's what anybody does. I guess that's what these scientists are doing.
Yeah.
And science changes, and that's the beauty of science is they can go back and say, no, we were wrong. Here's how it is now. And that may change too, So back in the day, they were all Antaresia children. So maybe we're just headed back to that. Maybe they missed the good old days when everything was just children.
Taxonomy just rolls in big wide circles.
Maybe
that loops back
these guys just really hated Stimson. They just can't stand that guy, and so we're stripping his name from these snakes. Who knows? But I doubt that's the case. Yeah. So there's a lot of things, and I mean, we make strides and we make missteps, and that's science. I mean, people used to think the earth was flat and that the sun revolved around the earth and things like that.
There's still people who
and now
think
we're moving
that the earth
back
is flat
into flat earthers.
Back to, yes.
So,
exactly.
which, that's exactly what these guys are doing with Antaresia. They're going back to the flat earth. Okay. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead.
Justin wants to put them on a rocket to prove that they are wrong.
Take them out to Western Australia. I mean, they have pictures. Yes. They even have a picture of a pygmy banded python, I think, in here in this paper, but crazy. So, we do the best we can with what we've got. So what do you do?
But clearly some research does not sit well with the doctor.
And that's the beauty of science too, is you can disagree with it and you can try to generate, hypotheses or your own interpretation where, they might have missed something, but I don't know. Their analysis was pretty deep, I suppose. So, more power to them. But what do you do? Well, any other points we need to make? Any summary? We kind of went off on a tangent.
We did. We really. I think we had a great idea for a topic, and we just really talked into the cesspit about it.
Yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of this, and it wasn't too painful.
We were trying for a more focused approach to this, but maybe we focused in the wrong area. Thus, going back to the biases that you. No, sorry.
So I think I would say in summary, like. There is good data to be found from studies. I think you need to understand what type of study it was and what kind of information you hope to glean from that study, and then make sure that that nothing's ironclad. That there's lots of ways to look at things, or maybe it's a snapshot in time. Maybe they just did a study one or a couple months out of the year, and then. They missed a big window of activity or something. So their data set is limited, so they can say, oh, we saw this at this time, but don't take that to mean that's all the animal does. Like dietary studies. If you're just looking at preserved specimens and they collected specimens, in the summer, but their diet other times of the year is different, or just during a couple months, they only have a few samples. So try not to overinterpret the data is, I guess, my point. And
and I think there's plenty of research that happens off the back of other research that comes up to find out that the research that they were, basing their work off of was shite, so, or different, not shite, but, they found very different conclusions from what, the previous research found, or even, trying to reproduce somebody else's work and not being able to reproduce it. So there's, this happens a lot. So it's not one of those things where people should, read a scientific anything and take it as like you said, like it's the gospel, because, science is
ever changing.
It's tough. And there's a lot of, like anything, there's a lot of nuance to it, just like Fight Club.
But
there's a lot of nuance.
Get into the literature, read abstracts, read things, look at the figures, look and see what they're looking at, educate yourself. Don't just trust other people's word. I think that's a scary thing of our society these days, is we just trust too much stuff, especially stuff on the internet. We just trust it without verifying, it's okay to question data and stuff like that. So, so that's, the way it goes, but good times.
Mm-hmm. I need help.
So, I think, we've pretty much covered what we were going to cover with this. I hope everybody got something out of it. I feel like, you got to start somewhere when it comes to finding information and finding research and scientific research. And the more you read, the more, you can, a lot of these papers are people referenced each other's work. And so, get into those publications. I think, again, as I said in the beginning, scientific research, peer-reviewed research, is the best form of knowledge that we have put together as humans. And I think, obviously everything is fallible, so you have to be a critical reader, a critical thinker, whether that's in your herp room, observing your animals as a student of the serpent, or whether that's reading peer-reviewed research. Always be thinking for yourself, always be trying to up your game and, draw inferences from things that can help better you. And man, don't be afraid to publish yourself if you have some insights, and don't be afraid to be wrong. And, being wrong is being right in a different sense, right?
Well said. Well said. Yeah. Don't be afraid to try to publish. Get, team up with somebody who knows how to publish, or just, read the instructions for authors and figure it out on your own and do the best you can. I think that's why some of those journals like oh my goodness, I'm so terrible. Herp Review is such a great journal, because they take little observations. So like if you see something, eating something strange, I saw a mulga eating a DOR death adder, you should publish that. And I'm speaking to myself, because I did see that and I need to publish that. So I just never have taken the opportunity, but we can publish those things, and citizen science is a real thing, and get into it. So all right. Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully you got something out of all our rambling and ranting, but I thought it was a decent discussion, and hopefully you got some insight into publications. And we'll thank the NPR radio network. They're off enjoying themselves in Australia, so it looks like they're finding a lot of good carpets and other reptiles. So pretty sweet.
Word! I cannot wait for the picture dump when it gets back,
and the recap, the report of the trip. So that'll be fun to listen to.
Definitely.
Yeah, check out all their stuff. I guess they're on hiatus for a bit until they get back, but hopefully we'll get this show released. I don't know if Eric will be able to put it out there or not, but maybe he has a little spare time.
I don't know if the Mac and Wookiee's doing edits or what. I'm not sure how that's going to go. Yeah, contractually, I don't know if he's obligated.
Yeah. But check us out. I'm Justin Julander on Facebook, or JG Julander on Instagram. My website's australianaddiction.com. You can find information to order a book or a poster or an animal. Hit me up if you're interested in something. But yeah, how about you, Chuck?
I am Chuck Norris Wins on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook as Chuck Poland. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you again next week for another edition of Reptile Fight Club.
Don't forget, The Good Doctor's book is out. If you haven't gotten your copy, please do.
Fight Club.